The DOJ's announcement of the foiled Iranian terror plot on the Saudi Arabian ambassador to the U.S. comes at a time, as we were just discussing, when Eric Holder has been subpoenaed for the Fast and Furious operation, a scandalous event that put U.S. firearms, military-grade weapons, in the hands of Mexican drug cartels. So what can we make of all this? For big picture analysis, we also turn to former CIA operative and chief of the bin Laden unit, Michael SCHEUER. Michael, it's always a pleasure. Welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Thank you, Judge.
Why do you think the Attorney General is hyping this so-called threat from Iran? Why do you think it was announced when it was announced? And does any of this make sense to you?
Well, I think, first of all, Ms. Miller's description of the operation is correct. It's like a Marx Brothers movie, but without the Marx Brothers, just some dummies they recruit from the street. I think one thing we need to keep in mind is that the performance of the FBI and DOJ in the area of terrorism has been pretty pathetic over the past couple of years. They may have jumped at something because it gave an appearance of actually being successful, but really it turns out to be just another sting, Judge. This is another counterterrorism operation at the end of the day that lured somebody into running it, apparently.
All right, this is basically a claim by the federal government that it protected us from harm that was never really there and never really threatening us to begin with. But well, yet it has that added twist, Michael, of involving the government of Iran. So let me ask you this. Who would want to create the impression that we need to engage in military activity, which a lot of the neocons demanded before the ink was even dry on this criminal complaint, against Iran?
Oh, the only people that would benefit from that would be the Israelis and the Saudis. And I think if I was looking at a counterintelligence operation to decide where this information came from, I'd be very interested to see if I could find an Israeli hand or a Saudi hand. Because in the long run, Judge, both Israel and Saudi Arabia are much more dangerous enemies to the United States than the Iranians are. The Iranians are a third-rate military power that we could handle very easily. But, you know, the Congress is crazy for war with Iran. Listen to Senator Graham and Senator McCain and Joe Lieberman. They're owned by the Israelis. The Saudis are very influential. So when you look at these kind of things, you have to ask, who would benefit from the war? The Israelis and the Saudis would love to see our money and our young men and women being killed to fight their enemies in Iran.
All right, you have engaged professionally in counterintelligence to enhance the security of the United States during much of your adult life. Tell me, Michael, could this be a case in which the American government, in which the Justice Department was played like a fiddle by foreign entities? It thought it was running the case, it thought it was in control of it, but in reality, these people that were involved were not under their control, but were under the control of someone who wanted to foment animosity between Iran and the United States.
I don't think it's impossible, Judge. I, of course, don't have the information to say that. But when you look at the bottom line, who this benefits, if it leads to military action against Iran, it only benefits the Israelis and Saudi Arabia. And there's a precedent for it. We've already fought 2 wars against Iraq in favor of Israeli interests and Saudi interests. So we're always being pushed to get our people killed for their interests. So I think it could happen another time. Why not?
Got it. Michael SCHEUER, it's a pleasure, no matter how gloomy these things are that we talk about. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Judge.
The skepticism surrounding the Iranian terror plot is growing amongst intelligence experts, as you just heard. But why isn't it catching on with any of the Republican leadership or even the Republican presidential hopefuls? If their campaigns are based on being against the current big government establishment, then why are they readily accepting this so-called plot? Here to discuss is North Carolina Republican Congressman Walter Jones. Congressman Jones, always a pleasure. Welcome here. Do you think that this is a case of the tail wagging the dog? Do you think that elements in the United States government are looking for some excuse to engage us in another war in the Middle East, and this is the first of one of those excuses?
Judge, I will answer you this way. I would say anything is possible. And I am concerned. I listened to your first 2 guests and deciphered what they were saying, and I can honestly say that I hope that we're not going to be duped by this administration into bombing Iran like we were with Libya.
Well, if the Iranian connection were not there, this would be just another run-of-the-mill FBI sting, where they found some bitter loner who hated the United States and persuaded him that they could help him with money and bombs and advance the cause of jihad. And then, of course, they stopped this plot before anybody's harmed. They've done this 17 times since 9/11. They claim this keeps us safe. I have made the argument this doesn't keep us safe. It creates the false sense of security. But with the involvement of the alleged involvement of the Iranian government, what is the reaction amongst your colleagues on Capitol Hill? Do they believe this, or do they want to see more evidence before they weigh in?
Judge, they want to see more evidence. They've already announced hearings in the Senate and the House to look into this issue, and I think that that's probably the safest thing to do at this time, because, you know, again, when the president didn't even come to Congress but decided he'd bomb Libya, I mean, that's set a horrible precedent.
You're not suggesting that the president might engage in some military action against Iran in order to get our attention off of the terrible problems at home, and that he would do so without authorization from the Congress? Is he capable of doing that, Walter Jones?
Well, Judge, I'll say this. I hope not, but let me answer you further with this. What happened in Libya? He said he called 2 or 3 of the leadership of the House and Senate, but the Congress never heard from him. And I'm not saying that he's going to do this, but I will say again that as Ron Paul and I, my dear friend, your dear friend, my candidate for the presidency, always says, be careful and be aware.
Be careful and be aware. Last question before I let you go. How much of a threat to American security today is the crazy government of Iran?
Well, in my opinion, I think that our agencies who have the responsibility to make sure that we're safe, I think at this point they're doing a very good job.
All right. Congressman Walter Jones, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.